I, OJ, take you
to be my wedded wife,
to be my wedded wife,
and I do promise and covenant
and I do promise and covenant
before God and these witnesses
before God and these witnesses
to be your loving and faithful husband,
to be your loving, faithful husband.
In the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is this your verdict? So say you one, so say you all.
Hi guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It's so greatly appreciated. Truly is. Before I get started, let me give you my usual disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. Please do not take what I say as fact. Please always do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Next, if you have not liked, subscribed, or commented yet, please consider doing so because it really helps me out and I really appreciate it. Sorry guys, I just want to pop in here real quick because I forgot to give you a trigger warning before the start of this. This video discusses a lot of DV and it's a lot of graphic parts to it. So if you think it's too much, you should probably skip this one. So I'm going to assume that if you clicked on this video and you haven't been living under a rock post June 12th, 1994, then you have a pretty good idea about the OJ Simpson, Nicole Brown Simpson, and Ronald Goldman. And you most definitely have an opinion as to whether he was completely innocent or he got away with a disgusting crime and our justice system failed as per usual. Okay, in case you're incredibly confused as to why I would be talking about the OJ Simpson case when there are 15 billion documentaries, talk show interviews, and books on this case, it is because, and I already know I'm way behind the times, but I stumbled across the fact that OJ wrote a hypothetical confession about the events that went on that night and how he and almost decapitated the mother of his children and her innocent friend, and how he planned to live off of this money for the hypothetical confession before the Goldmans swooped in and took back the justice that I personally believe that they very much deserved. October 3rd, 1995, we all saw the verdict that shook the nation, right? February 5th, 1997, the Goldman and Brown family were awarded $31 million in a civil case after the acquittal. The jury awarded $7 million in compensatory damages and $12.5 million in punitive damages to the Goldman family, and $12.5 million to the estate of Nicole Brown Simpson, which was set to have her two children as the beneficiaries. After the settlement was handed down, OJ Simpson allegedly swore that he would never work a day in his life to honor this judgment, and for the most part, he hasn't, or at least not on purpose. See, the money for this book or this hypothetical confession that reads more like an actual confession was supposed to be given to the estate for the children. Therefore, the Brown and Goldman family couldn't go after the money paid out to him for the hypothetical confession. Leading up to the publication of this manuscript, OJ Simpson moved to the state of Florida. Why, you may ask? Florida is a debtor-friendly state, and because of this, OJ is protected by the homestead law. This law safeguards his house, and because he lives in a right-to-work state, they cannot garnish his wages. He also has numerous pension plans that amount to millions of dollars, and all of that money is also protected from the civil lawsuit in the state of Florida. On top of this, the original judgment for $38 million between the two families increases at a rate of 10% a year. The Goldmans were awarded $19 million, and 10 years later, that amount has doubled due to interest and OJ refusing to pay 1 red cent. Let's also not forget that there's this little thing in the United States that is called double jeopardy. Basically, he could turn around tomorrow do a press conference with Casey Anthony where they both laugh in our faces for getting away with, allegedly, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it, period. So, a very long story short, the publication company HarperCollins paid OJ a $1 million advance for his hypothetical confession.
Keep in mind that this is
Purely
hypothetical. Hypothetical.
Yes.
When the families expressed their outrage, the publishing company flew to meet the Goldmans and their lawyers to essentially try to pay them off. In other words, we're going to give you this huge sum of money, but we're not going to stop the process of the book, but also not going to stop you from boycotting the project, as they called it. The Goldmans would say that they had to give this decision quite a bit of thought. Because, okay, this is where they were at this point. How could they accept this huge amount of money for basically they're getting paid off, right? And then turn around and boycott the very book that they just accepted all of this money for. So after the family of Nicole turned down the offer as well, the publication of the book was put on pause. The Goldman family fought hard. They fought really hard. And look, I'm with them. They couldn't get OJ. Really what they wanted was they wanted OJ on death row. Period. That's what they wanted. They couldn't even get him life in prison. They got nothing. And the way they looked at it was, well, if we can't get you that way, we're going to get you this way, which is your pockets. Not to mention the fact that they won a civil suit fair and square, and he basically left in their faces. So I know that a lot of people were against this. I am not. I'm just not. Okay, so the Goldmans would end up having the first publication of the book canceled and 400,000 copies destroyed. And they were awarded the rights to the book that OJ Simpson wrote, If I Did It, written via a ghostwriter. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go through like the key points of the book, If I Did It, the hypothetical confession of an acquitted alleged killer. The ghostwriter of the manuscript was a man that lived on Gretna Green Way, which was one street over from Bundy Drive, where Nicole lived, and he actually shared a back alley with Nicole. Prior to June 12, 1994, he did not know who Nicole was, though.
Now, as of the date of June the 12th, 1994, did you know someone by the name of Nicole Brown?
No, I did not.
The writer believed then that OJ was guilty, and he still believes that to this day. He even testified for the prosecution in the trial. He even testified for the prosecution at the trial, and his testimony would help Marcia Clark put together a timeline. He testifies that Nicole's dog began to make himself heard around 10:15, 10:20, leading to the assumption that this all went down around that time. This would give OJ enough time to get back to the house, clean up, and get into a limo to the airport to fly to Chicago to host a golf tournament for Hertz. Judith Regan, the publisher of the manuscript, knew the ghostwriter because they worked together very briefly for the National Enquirer, but they never kept in touch after that. She told him that she was assured that this was going to be a confession and that she wanted him to be the person that wrote it. So he flew down to Miami to meet with OJ. OJ would be late getting to the meeting because he was a little bit nervous. When he finally did decide to show up, ghostwriter was brought into the room to meet him. After OJ shook his hand and gestured for him to sit down, he turned to Pablo and said, "Tell me something. What is this wailing dog bullshit? You ever heard of anyone putting a man away based on the testimony of a wailing dog?" Pablo says he knew at that point that Simpson either remembered him from the trial or someone on his team was smart enough to Google him.
At some point while you were watching the 10 o'clock news on Channel 5, did something distract you?
Yes, about 15 or 20 minutes into it, I heard a dog barking, sort of a plaintive wail. This was a pretty persistent barking that just wouldn't stop.
You described it as a plaintive wail,
Yes,
and that was at about 10:15 to 10:20?
yes.
Pablo goes on to say that there was one of three possibilities that Simpson was deciding to write this book. One, he wanted the money. Two, he missed the attention. Or three, he genuinely wanted to confess and he knew that he would be protected because of the double jeopardy laws. Or there was one final reason. The entire thing was a con. When they begin the interview, OJ sits down with Pablo and he tells him, I'm not going to talk about, because I wasn't there that night and I don't know anything about it. So Pablo, confused, looks at him and says, what do you mean? I thought I was going to hear a confession, or at least a hypothetical confession. Again, OJ tells him that he has nothing to confess and that he believed that this was going to be a fictional story. Pablo tells OJ that he doesn't write fiction. He only writes nonfiction books and he saves fiction for his screenplays. The importance of this is that it again makes no sense as to why he was so on edge about this whole alleged confession. If he truly has nothing to do with it, like, completely innocent people are not afraid of the truth. And most times they want the truth to come out. So it's incredibly hard to understand why OJ was so on edge about writing this manuscript that he was originally completely on board for. The lawyer in the room takes OJ for a 2-hour walk and they come back with OJ completely on board. And so the manuscript begins to be born. I'll try to keep this part short because I know we all want to get to the night question, right? Okay. Nicole Brown Simpson and OJ Simpson met when OJ was 30 and Nicole was 18. She was a hostess at the Daisy, a movie star hangout and a private club. OJ was married to a woman named Marguerite at the time. The couple had one child, a little girl, and she was pregnant with their second child. But OJ's marriage to Marguerite had been on the rocks for quite some time. So after a 3-year-long affair with Nicole, in February of 1985, they married at Simpson's Rockingham mansion. Nicole and OJ would go on to have 2 children together and live a seemingly perfect life. But things are not always what they seem. And there's a lot of DV in this marriage. This is not up for dispute. I mean, even though OJ Simpson dances around it at every turn, Nicole was documenting the events with pictures, letters, journals, and 911 calls to corroborate. Cops were called to this home multiple times. One time they found Nicole hiding in the bushes. Friends of the couple say that they were always fighting, and more often than not, their fights became physical. The couple would finally divorce in 1992, but OJ wouldn't leave Nicole alone and just take the L. He decided instead that it would be a much better idea for him to begin to stalk Nicole. The manuscript starts by saying, quote, I'm going to tell you a story you've never heard before because no one knows this story the way I know it. It takes place on the night of June 12th, 1994, and it concerns my ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her young friend, Ronald Goldman.
Yes, we are on day 2 of filming. There's a lot of stuff to go through. There will definitely be a day 3 of filming, possibly a day 4. Doing what I can here. June 12th, 1994, the night in question. The night of Sunday, June 12th, 1994, Nicole, her mother, OJ, and a few other family and friends show up to Paul Revere Middle School to watch Nicole and OJ's daughter Sydney at her dance recital. Nicole and OJ had been divorced for about 2 years at this point, and to say that they were on bad terms this evening would probably be an understatement. It's been reported that Nicole refused to even look in OJ's direction that night. Following the recital, Nicole, her family, friends, and children all went to the Mezzaluna restaurant on San Vincent Boulevard in Brentwood to celebrate. One of the waiters that worked there at the time was 25-year-old Ronald Goldman. Ron was a really good-looking single guy with no kids that was just about to launch his own business. Ron and Nicole had become friendly as a result of her being a frequent customer, and the two had even hung out outside of the Mezzaluna, but their friendship was strictly platonic. At 8:40 p.m., Nicole pays the check, walks outside, and says goodbye to her parents. From there, she goes to get ice cream with her kids, their friends, and her friends. After ice cream, Nicole says goodbye to her friends. Sydney and Justin's friends get picked up, and Nicole puts her kids to bed. She then lights some candles, and she runs a bath. During this time, Nicole's mother, Judith, realizes that she had lost her glasses at some point that night, so she calls the restaurant. The bar manager goes outside, spots the glasses, grabs them, and places them in an envelope. A short time later, Nicole would call the Mezzaluna restaurant and ask to speak to Ron. Ron told Nicole that he would be leaving work soon and that he would drop the glasses off to her at her house. Ron punches out of work that night at 9:33 p.m., takes off his tie, has a sparkling water, and chats with the bartender. After he leaves work, he goes home, changes his clothes, borrows his friend's car, and drives over to Nicole's home. Meanwhile, allegedly, back at the Rockingham mansion, OJ Simpson's sitting around fuming over the fact that Nicole's dress that night was too short in his opinion, as if it's any of his business. OJ's house guest at the time was a man by the name of Cato. He asked Simpson how the recital went that night, and as the two were talking, they decided to take the Bentley to McDonald's to get a burger. After they arrive home, OJ goes inside and begins packing for his trip to Chicago. From there, he goes to his garage to get his golf clubs, but he couldn't stop thinking about Nicole. He writes that he's mad that Nicole would always say no when he asked to see the kids, and he believed that she would always make excuses as to why he couldn't pick them up. But he then admits that he always asks to see the kids last minute and with very little notice. So I'm pretty sure that's why she's saying no to you. Or that the kids were tired, or that the kids had a long day. Because it is incredibly rude and entitled on your part, OJ Simpson. She does not have to drop everything she's doing to get the kids ready to see you because you decided that you wanted them. He writes that he was also mad that Nicole was going to him for advice about men she was dating and confiding in him that she was scared of being used. This really pissed him off, even though he had seen multiple women up to this point and had even called a Raiders cheerleader the night of June 12th for a hookup. From there, he calls his girlfriend Pauline to apologize to her for not taking her to the recital. Pauline didn't answer, and OJ assumed that this was her way of punishing him for that, going on to say that he had Nicole to thank for that fight. So at this point, it feels like even if he stubbed his toe, it would somehow be Nicole's fault. At 10:03, he says that he closed his eyes and told himself to stop thinking about her. He then got up to take a shower and finish packing when suddenly he noticed a car outside that he didn't recognize, and the driver of the car standing outside of it waving. When he looked a little closer, he realized that it was Charlie. Who's Charlie, you may ask? Well, that's a fantastic question. Yes, we are on day 2 of filming. There's a lot of stuff to go through. There will definitely be a day 3 of filming, possibly a day 4. Doing what I can here. June 12th, 1994, the night in question. The night of Sunday, June 12th, 1994, Nicole, her mother, OJ, and a few other family and friends show up to Paul Revere Middle School to watch Nicole and OJ's daughter Sydney at her dance recital. Nicole and OJ had been divorced for about 2 years at this point, and to say that they were on bad terms this evening would probably be an understatement. It's been reported that Nicole refused to even look in OJ's direction that night. Following the recital, Nicole, her family, friends, and children all went to the Mezzaluna restaurant on San Vincent Boulevard in Brentwood to celebrate. One of the waiters that worked there at the time was 25-year-old Ronald Goldman. Ron was a really good-looking single guy with no kids that was just about to launch his own business. Ron and Nicole had become friendly as a result of her being a frequent customer, and the two had even hung out outside of the Mezzaluna, but their friendship was strictly platonic. At 8:40 p.m., Nicole pays the check, walks outside, and says goodbye to her parents. From there, she goes to get ice cream with her kids, their friends, and her friends. After ice cream, Nicole says goodbye to her friends. Sydney and Justin's friends get picked up, and Nicole puts her kids to bed. She then lights some candles, and she runs a bath. During this time, Nicole's mother, Judith, realizes that she had lost her glasses at some point that night, so she calls the restaurant. The bar manager goes outside, spots the glasses, grabs them, and places them in an envelope. A short time later, Nicole would call the Mezzaluna restaurant and ask to speak to Ron. Ron told Nicole that he would be leaving work soon and that he would drop the glasses off to her at her house. Ron punches out of work that night at 9:33 p.m., takes off his tie, has a sparkling water, and chats with the bartender. After he leaves work, he goes home, changes his clothes, borrows his friend's car, and drives over to Nicole's home. Meanwhile, allegedly, back at the Rockingham mansion, OJ Simpson's sitting around fuming over the fact that Nicole's dress that night was too short in his opinion, as if it's any of his business. OJ's house guest at the time was a man by the name of Cato. He asked Simpson how the recital went that night, and as the two were talking, they decided to take the Bentley to McDonald's to get a burger. After they arrive home, OJ goes inside and begins packing for his trip to Chicago. From there, he goes to his garage to get his golf clubs, but he couldn't stop thinking about Nicole. He writes that he's mad that Nicole would always say no when he asked to see the kids, and he believed that she would always make excuses as to why he couldn't pick them up. But he then admits that he always asks to see the kids last minute and with very little notice. So I'm pretty sure that's why she's saying no to you. Or that the kids were tired, or that the kids had a long day. Because it is incredibly rude and entitled on your part, OJ Simpson. She does not have to drop everything she's doing to get the kids ready to see you because you decided that you wanted them. He writes that he was also mad that Nicole was going to him for advice about men she was dating and confiding in him that she was scared of being used. This really pissed him off, even though he had seen multiple women up to this point and had even called a Raiders cheerleader the night of June 12th for a hookup. From there, he calls his girlfriend Pauline to apologize to her for not taking her to the recital. Pauline didn't answer, and OJ assumed that this was her way of punishing him for that, going on to say that he had Nicole to thank for that fight. So at this point, it feels like even if he stubbed his toe, it would somehow be Nicole's fault. At 10:03, he says that he closed his eyes and told himself to stop thinking about her. He then got up to take a shower and finish packing when suddenly he noticed a car outside that he didn't recognize, and the driver of the car standing outside of it waving. When he looked a little closer, he realized that it was Charlie. Who's Charlie, you may ask? Well, that's a fantastic question. And it all depends on who you ask. OJ says that Charlie was a man that he met a few months earlier at a dinner with mutual friends and then ran into him again a few weeks post that first meeting. While the manuscript was being written, Pablo re-raised the question, was there a second person involved? There must have been a second person involved. How could OJ have pulled this off alone? The prologue of the book says that Charlie was a fictional name that was made up by the ghostwriter Pablo. Some believe that he is a real person that only knew OJ for a few months before he agreed to help brutally two people, while others believe that Charlie is in fact OJ Simpson. The question of who Charlie is and what his real name is may never be answered. Nevertheless, OJ goes downstairs to talk to him. Charlie had a worried look on his face, so OJ asks him what's wrong. He tells him that he was just at dinner in Santa Monica with a few of his friends, and they were talking about how they had just gotten home from vacationing in Cabo. He says that they were unaware that Charlie had known OJ, and he started telling them stories about how they were drinking, drugging, and getting kinky with Nicole and her friend Faye Resnick. Whether or not this is true, we will never know. I do know that Nicole was a very healthy person and she took her health very seriously. I also know that if Nicole and Faye were on vacation in Cabo as a girls' trip with no children, that they can drink, drug, and kink as much as they damn well please, and it's nobody's business. It's just not. As long as she's not doing it in the presence of her children, it doesn't matter. It's my opinion. This drives OJ into a rage, and he tells Charlie to get in the Bronco. When Charlie asks where they're going, OJ responds to scare the shit out of that girl. On the ride over, Charlie was trying to tell him to calm down and telling him to let the lawyers take care of it, to which he told him, fuck the lawyers. Charlie brings up the fact that she might have someone there, to which she responds, she better not with my kids in the house. They pull up to Nicole's home on Bundy. OJ reaches under his seat and pulls out his blue wool cap and his gloves. Charlie tells him that he looks like a burglar, to which he responds, good. He then reaches under his seat once more and pulls out his limited edition knife. A knife he had recently purchased and recently had sharpened, according to testimony at the trial. OJ shows Charlie the knife, and Charlie snaps at him and tells him to put that shit back. So he writes that he does, and then he exits the car. Nicole's condo was one of 2 units, and each of them had their own gate, except Nicole's gate was broken at the time. The buzzer didn't work, and the gate was left open. OJ took notice of lights flickering. This would be the candles that Nicole had lit in her bathroom because she was taking a bath, and he had heard faint music playing. So it's obvious to him at this point that Nicole is expecting company. And he wondered who the fuck it was this time. OJ writes that just as he was getting really steamed, he noticed a man enter through the gate looking like he owned the place. This man would later be identified as Ronald Goldman. He saw OJ standing there and he just froze. OJ turns and asks, who the fuck are you? Ron tells him that he just came by to drop off a pair of Judy's glasses. OJ didn't believe him, even though he was carrying an envelope with the glasses inside of them. OJ turns to Ron and says, so it's Judy, is it? You're on a first name basis? It was at that moment that he says he saw Charlie come through the gate, holding the knife. Charlie tells him that he saw a guy walking through the gate, so he wanted to come over and make sure that there was no trouble going on. OJ turns to Charlie and tells him, this MFer wants me to believe that he's dropping off a pair of Judy's glasses. Ron turns to him and says, I am, look for yourself. From there, OJ questions whether or not he will be going back to work after that. Again, this is none of your business, especially when you were just blowing up your girlfriend's phone trying to apologize to her for not taking her to your daughter's recital. Oh, and calling a Raiders cheerleader. He starts yelling at him about how Nicole has candles lit, music playing, and most likely a bottle of wine waiting for him. It's at that point that the door swings open and Nicole comes outside, understandably furious. Because the truth of the matter is that the only person that had a right to be heated that night was Nicole. She was still wearing her black slinky cocktail dress. She looked at OJ, looked at Ron, and looked at Charlie. She saw that Ron was closed in at this point and he had nowhere to go. Nicole and OJ began screaming and cursing at each other, with Nicole repeatedly telling him to get the fuck out of here. OJ then writes that Nicole charges him with her arms flailing, and he ducks. Maybe he only beats up on women who are his wife and not his ex-wife. In any case, when OJ ducks, Nicole loses her balance, falls to the floor, and is knocked unconscious. I personally, allegedly, and hypothetically believe that it is more likely than not that if she charged at OJ in a rage, he knocked her ass on the floor and made her lose consciousness. Apparently and allegedly at that moment, Ron went into a karate stance and began circling OJ, bobbing and weaving around him. Charlie then decides to step in between the two in an attempt to get his brand new friend out of there, and that's when OJ notices that he still has the knife in his hand. It's around this time that Nicole begins to come to. OJ grabs the knife from Charlie's hand and tells Ron to show him how tough he thinks he is. So here's the thing, OJ. Let me just give you, the former football star that is 6'1", that grew up in a super poor neighborhood, a little piece of advice. Regardless of whether Ron Goldman lived or died that night, he is way tougher than you will ever be. Not only did you put your hands on a woman, but in your own hypothetical story, you were coming to this fight with a knife, and he was coming to it with his fists. Oh, and you were 2 against 1, hypothetically. And he still didn't back down to you. Jay claims that he must have blacked out or something, which is so strange because all the killers always black out right before everything happens. They remember everything that happened before, they remember everything that happened after, but they always seem to black out during the event. He says the next thing he knew, he placed his hand on his heart and his shirt was strangely wet. He says he looked down and it would take him a few minutes for his brain to compute what he was seeing. He asked himself if this was blood all over him. What is this? Was he hurt? What the hell happened? That's when he remembered that Ron Goldman guy walked through the gate with Judy's glasses. He remembered that the two were in the middle of an argument. That's when he hypothetically looked down and saw Nicole laying on the ground in front of him. Then he saw Ron a few feet away from her, slumped against the bars of the fence. So he began to ask himself more questions. What the fuck happened? Who the fuck did this and why? And where the fuck was I when all this went down?
After that, I don't remember, except I'm standing there and there's all kind of stuff around and
What kind of stuff?
blood and stuff around. I hate to say this, but this is hypothetical. I'm sorry.
Right.
I know we got to back up again.
It's okay.
He looked down at himself once more, and that's when he saw his clothes covered in blood and a knife in his hand that was also covered in hypothetical blood. Then it suddenly all made perfect sense to him. This was a hypothetical dream, and he was about to hypothetically wake up in his bed at any moment. OJ turns and sees Charlie standing in the shadows just a few feet away from him with his mouth open in shock. Then he sees Nicole's dog Kato walking around Nicole and getting blood all over his paws. Suddenly the dog lifts up his snout and lets out a huge wail. That's when OJ turns to Charlie and says, "Let's get the fuck out of here." Can we also just take a moment to say that Nicole's dog is really the true MVP of this story? A man by the name of Stephen Schwab, who lived about a half a mile away from Nicole, would testify. He says that he was out walking his dog that night at around 10:55 when he spotted a dog that seemed very agitated and was barking. The dog would end up following Stephen all the way to his home, and once they were in the courtyard of their apartment, Stephen noticed the blood in his paws, but he didn't think too much of it at the time, mostly because he didn't know if the dog had gotten into a fight while he was out. He didn't know if the dog was a stray. Dogs get hurt all the time. So Steve and his wife call animal control, and then they go outside to wait for them, but they never arrive. While they're outside waiting, their neighbor and his wife would come home and see them standing outside. Stephen's neighbor was a man by the name of Sukaru Bostep. He decided to take Kato for a walk to try to find its owner. The dog would then take him back to Bundy Drive and stop at Nicole's house. The man testifies that when he looked closer, he noticed Nicole and an obscene amount of blood. So he runs across the street to a neighbor of hers and he calls 911. If that dog didn't let out those huge wails and didn't walk the streets looking for a stranger to show him what had happened to his loyal owner, who knows if they would have even gotten the timeline right. And if they didn't get the timeline right, then OJ would have a perfect alibi because he would have been in Chicago. You can't kill Nicole and Ron if you're in Chicago. Or even worse, what if Nicole's children were the ones to find their mother? Just the thought of that sends chills through my body. I say all that to say that dogs are such incredible and fascinating animals, and hands down one of my favorite animals on the planet. OJ writes that he, hypothetically, strips off all of his clothes except his socks, drops the knife into the middle of the pile, scoops everything up, and gets into the driver's side of the Bronco while Charlie hypothetically gets into the passenger side, and the two take off like a Bronco's running back out of hell. As OJ approaches the gate to his Rockingham mansion, he notices his limo driver is doing the same as well. OJ decides it would be best for him to drive past his house and park the Bronco in front of a neighbor's home. There is a home that was a little closer, but he couldn't run the risk of parking there and somebody spotting him. It was 10:37 at this time, and he had to be in the limo in 8 minutes in order to catch his flight. He orders Charlie to wait until he gets into the limo and leaves. He tells him that as soon as he does, he has to park the Bronco in the driveway, get in his car, and fuck off. OJ got out of the car, grabbed the bloody bundle of clothes, went into a little secret path that he shared with his neighbor, and within seconds he was on his property. The two were so nervous that they must not have noticed that they left Ron and Nicole's blood all over the Bronco. He went past the tennis courts, past his guest house, bumping into the air conditioner, past his pool, and towards the rear of the main home. Once inside, he left all the lights off until he reached the bedroom. Then he turned on the bedroom lights and jumped in the shower. He says by that time he was out of the shower, the phone was ringing once again, and it was the limo driver. OJ answers the phone, plays like he had fallen asleep, and tells the limo driver that he'll be right down. While OJ's putting his things into the limo, his house guest Cato comes out, alarmed and worried about the loud bang that he heard when OJ hypothetically bumped into the air conditioner, which was Cato's air conditioner. There are 3 guest houses, by the way. 3 guest houses. One that Cato was living in, one that OJ's oldest daughter was living in, and one that the maid was living in. OJ tells Cato that he was in the shower and that he didn't hear shit, telling him that he's just trying to get out of here. But he writes that because Cato was so spooked that somebody was lurking around, he agreed to look around for him. He comes back and tells Cato that he didn't see anything and that he really needs to go. He really needs to catch this flight. He told Cato to make sure he locks up and sets the alarm. He gets into the limo and he makes his way to the airport. Once there, he says he signed a bunch of autographs, got on the plane, and was sleeping before it even took off. After landing, he was brought to O'Hare Plaza Hotel, went to his room, took off his clothes, and immediately went to bed. Imagine what it must take to do all of this. Jump on a flight like nothing. Pretend nothing ever happened. Go to your hotel room and just pass back out again like nothing ever happened. A short time later, the phone rings, and it's the Los Angeles Police Department calling him to tell him that they have some bad news that Nicole had been, what do you mean, killed? He says, yeah, I just need you to get home as soon as possible, they tell him. Going on to say that his kids are okay, it's an active investigation, and that they don't know much. He says that Marcia Clark would later try to use that phone call against him, stating that the reason why he didn't ask what happened to her was because he already knew. Makes sense. He says, but that's not how he remembers the conversation happening. So OJ flies back to LA, and once he arrives, he goes to his house to meet with the cops. Robert Kardashian would be there waiting for him as well, and would be the one that would take OJ's bags with him when he left, causing the infamous, "Where did Rob Kardashian go with OJ's bags?" Suggesting that Robert Kardashian walked off with loads of evidence and possibly the bloody knife.
Kim says she actually saw the contents of the bag. I remember I went through it. The news was like, where is this Louis Vuitton bag? And I'm like, oh, it's upstairs. So what does she say she found? Just toiletries and clothes and golf clothes. Just random stuff. I'm pretty sure it's still probably in my dad's storage.
June 13th, 1994, a little after 1:30 p.m., OJ goes into the interrogation room with the two detectives that were leading the investigation. He was read and waived his Miranda rights, and the interview begins. He was asked your typical questions: name, age, birthday. They ask, when did he and Nicole get divorced? A little over 2 years ago. How was his relationship with Nicole? He says they tried to get back together for almost a year. Nicole really wanted them to work out. As custody, joint custody through the courts, we have no issues with the kids, except when he wants to pick them up sporadically and she says no. How was your separation? I loved her. I didn't want us to separate. But you just wrote about how you hypothetically killed her. It defies logic to me. They say, I understand she made a couple of crime reports. We had a big fight about 6 years ago on New Year's, and she made a report. I didn't make a report. And we had an altercation about a year ago. It wasn't physical. I kicked her door or something. That's not true.
911 emergency.
Can you get someone over here now to 325 Gretna Green? He's back. Please.
Well, okay, what does he look like?
He's OJ Simpson. I think you know his record. Could you just send somebody over here?
Okay, what is he doing there?
He just drove up again.
He just drove
somebody
up.
over?
Okay, wait a minute, what kind of car is he in?
He's in a white Bronco. But first of all, he broke the back door down to get in.
Okay, wait a minute, what's your name?
Nicole Simpson.
Okay, is he the sportscaster or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Wait a minute, we're sending the police. What is he doing? Is he
freaking going nuts? You're going to hear him in a minute. He's about to go in again.
Okay, just stay on the line.
I don't want to stay on the line.
Just stay on the line so we can know what's going on until the police get there, okay? Okay, Nicole?
Uh-huh.
When's the last time you saw Nicole? That day at Sydney's dance recital. It ended about 6:37. Nicole left with her family and the kids in her Jeep, and I left in my Bentley. How did you get that cut on your hand? In Chicago, I think. I broke a glass out of anger after I spoke to you guys. Did Nicole have words with you last night? No. Did you talk to her last night? Just to ask to speak to my daughter. But you didn't have a conversation with her? No. We've got some blood on and in your car. We've got some blood at your house, and sort of a problem. Well, take my blood test then. We'd like to do that. Plus, you have this cut on your hand and you're not sure how it happened. Did you have that cut on your hand the last time you saw Nicole? Sometime after the recital when I was rushing to get to my house. How long were you guys together? 17 years. Did you ever hit her? One night we had a fight and she hit me, and they never took my statement, and they never wanted to hear my side. Nicole was drunk and she started tearing up my house, but I never touched her. That's not true.
Okay, Nicole?
Mm-hmm.
Is he still outdoors? Or
He's in the backyard.
He's in the backyard?
Screaming at my roommate about me and at me.
Okay, what is he saying?
Oh, something about some guy I know and hookers and keys. And I started this shit before, and it's all my fault.
Did he hit you today or no?
No.
Okay, you don't need any paramedics or anything? Okay, you just want him to
Broke
leave?
my door. He broke the whole back door in.
He left and he came back?
And he came and he practically knocked my upstairs door down, but he pounded it, and then he screamed and hollered, and I tried to get him out of the bedroom because the kids were sleeping in there. And then he wanted somebody's phone number, and I gave him my phone book and put my phone book down to write down the phone number that he wanted, and then he took my phone book with all my stuff in it.
Okay, so basically you guys have just been arguing. Is he inside right now?
Yeah.
Okay, just a moment. Is he talking to you?
Yeah.
Are you locked in a room or something?
No, he can come right in. I'm not going where the kids are because the kids are.
You think he's going to hit you?
I don't know.
Okay. Stay on the line. Don't hang it up, okay?
Okay, the kids are sleeping.
Is he upset with something that you did?
A long time ago, it always comes back.
Slapped her a couple times? No, I wrestled her is what I did. I didn't slap her at all. 33 minutes later, the interview concluded and OJ Simpson was returned to his Rockingham mansion. He states that when he returned home, there was approximately 24 people at his home waiting for him. Among those people were the ever-famous Robert Kardashian, who told his longtime friend that it would be best if he came to stay with him at his home in Encino. OJ states that the constant news coverage blaming him was becoming too much for him to handle. So he agrees to stay with Kardashian, but before they leave, he asks him to retrieve a bag for him from under the seat of his Bentley. What Robert Kardashian didn't know at the time was that OJ's GUN was inside of that bag. June 14th, 1994, the autopsy of Nicole Brown Simpson is performed at the Los Angeles coroner's office. She had an incised wound to the neck, meaning a clean, straight cut caused by a sharp edge. Cuts to her left and right carotid arteries, the arteries that provide blood to the brain. Incisions to the left and right jugular veins, incisions to her cervical spine, 7 stab wounds to her neck and scalp, a bruised scalp, and multiple defense wounds on her hands. June 14th, 1994, the autopsy of Ron Goldman is performed at the Los Angeles coroner's office. He had a sharp force wound to the left side of his neck, cutting the jugular vein. Multiple wounds to his chest, abdomen, and left thigh. Multiple incised defensive wounds to the scalp, face, neck, chest, and left hand, and multiple defense wounds to his upper extremities and his hands. June 16th, 1994, Nicole is laid to rest in Brentwood, California. OJ was in attendance with his children. He greeted mourners who came up to him to show their respect and played the grieving ex-husband role very well. Allegedly. Friday, June 17th, 1994, Robert Kardashian and Robert Shapiro walk into OJ's room to have a talk with him. They have a small chit-chat session to see how he's holding up before they drop the bomb on him. Shapiro asked him if he had heard from police that morning, to which he replies yes. He then went on to tell them that they had issued a warrant for his arrest and that he had to turn himself in by 11 a.m. Going on to say that doctors were on their way to collect blood and hair samples for police. OJ writes that he looked at the clock and it's almost 10 a.m. at this time. So he tells them that he just wants to take a shower and get dressed. They say okay. This would set off the chain of events known as the low-speed Bronco chase. OJ goes downstairs where the doctors are and he gives them a blood sample. His friend and former teammate A.C. Kellens, his girlfriend Paula, and a psychiatrist are also at the home. Doctors fill around 4 to 5 vials of blood. After this, he asks to excuse himself and goes into the den where he calls Nicole's mother, Judy Brown, and asks her to take care of the kids until all of this is over. He then pulls out a legal pad and writes a very lengthy 4-page letter.
This letter was written by OJ today.
To whom it may concern. First, everyone understand that I have nothing to do with Nicole's. I loved her, always have and always will. If we had a problem, it's because I loved her so much. Recently, we came to the understanding that for now, We were not right for each other, at least for now. Despite our love, we were different, and that's why we mutually agreed to go our separate ways. It was tough splitting for a second time, but we both knew it was for the best. Inside, I had no doubt that in the future we would become close as friends or more, unlike what has been written in the press. Nicole and I had a great relationship for most of our lives together. Like all long-term relationships, we had a few downs and ups. I took the heat New Year's 1989 because that's what I was supposed to do. I did not plead no contest for any other reason but to protect our privacy and was advised it would end the press hype. I don't want to belabor knocking the press, but I can't believe what is being said. Most of it is totally made up. I know you have a job to do, but as a last wish, please, please, please leave my children in peace. Their lives will be tough enough. I want to send my love and thanks to all my friends. I'm sorry I can't name every one of you, especially AC, man. Thanks for being in my life. Support and friendship I received from so many. Thanks for the fun. All my teammates over the years. Marguerite, thanks for the early years. We had some fun. Paula, what can I say? You're special. I'm sorry we're not going to have our chance. God brought you to me. I now see as I leave, you'll be in my thoughts. I think of my life and feel I've done most of the right things. What the outcome, people will look and point. I can't take that. I can't subject my children to that. This way, they can move on and go on with their lives. Please, if I've done anything worthwhile in my life, let my kids live in peace from you, press. I've had a good life. I'm proud of how I lived. My mama taught me to do unto others. I treated people the way I wanted to be treated. I have always tried to be up and helpful, so why is this happening? I'm sorry for the Goldman family. I know how much it hurts. Nicole and I had a good life together. All this press talk about a rocky relationship was no more than what every long-term relationship experiences. All her friends will confirm that I've been totally loving and understanding. No, they won't. Of what she's been going through. At times, I felt like a battered husband or boyfriend, but I loved her. Make that clear to everyone, and I would take whatever it took to make it work. Don't feel sorry for me. I've had a great life, great friends. Please think of the real OJ and not this lost person. Thanks for making my life special. I hope I helped yours. Peace and love, OJ. He then folds up the letter, places it in an envelope, and writes, "To whom it may concern," on the front. He walks out, hands it to Robert Kardashian, and asks him not to open it until after. When Kardashian asks, "After what?" OJ simply replies, "Just after." At this point, Robert Shapiro tells him that it is after 11, it's time to go, relaying to OJ that he promised police he would have him at Parker Center by 11. He asks Paula to leave and asks AC to walk her out. He then goes back upstairs, grabs his passport, pictures of Nicole and the kids, $10 in cash, and the GUN in the black bag that he asked Robert Kardashian to grab out of the Bentley for him. He makes his way back downstairs and he sees that AC is alone in the foyer, and he says to him, "Let's get out of here." And they do. The entire event lasts an hour, and OJ was then taken into custody without incident. The trial began on January 3rd, 1995, and the jury consisted of 9 African Americans and 3 whites. It is highly speculated that this was done on purpose by the defense, believing that the African American community would sympathize with their client more. The evidence brought forth by the prosecution was great, in my opinion, but when you have millions of dollars, you can hire a team that's better than that. I was fairly young when this trial took place, and although I was aware of it, I wasn't hugely interested in watching it as it unfolded. So I went back and watched a huge majority of it for purposes of this video, which is why it's taken me so many days to film this. It's so long to do this. But it was, for lack of a better word, a complete shit show, in my opinion. The defense was out for the blood of the prosecution, and they made that so very clear. There are a lot of fights. October 25th, 1993, Nicole calls 911 from her home on Gretna Green. She had moved into her home in January of 1992, right after her split from OJ.
911 emergency. Yeah, can you send someone to my house? What's the problem there? Well, my ex-husband or my husband just broke into my house, and he's ranting and raving. Now he's just walked out in the front yard. Has he been drinking or anything? No, but he's crazy. Is he black or Hispanic? Black. What's he wearing right now? Black pants and a golf shirt. What color shirt? I think it's black and white. You said he hasn't been drinking?
No.
Did he hit you? No. Did you have a restraining order against him? No. What's your name? Nicole Simpson. Your address? 325 Gretna Green Way. Is it a house or an apartment? It's a house. Okay, we'll send police out. Thank you.
When officers arrived at the scene, they found Nicole visibly shaking, concerned, upset, and scared. OJ was still at the home when they arrived, as was Cato, who was Nicole's house guest before becoming OJ's. In January of 1994, Nicole moved to her home on Bundy Drive. This was just 6 months before her death. Nicole also had a safe deposit box that was searched after her death. Inside the box, officers found pictures documenting her injuries from OJ, plane tickets in Nicole's name from New York back to LA, a newspaper article about OJ's purchase of a home in Laguna Beach, an apology letter written by OJ to Nicole, and a letter written by Nicole to OJ that reads, OJ, I think I have to put this all in a letter. A lot of years ago, I used to do much better. I'm going to try again now. I'd like you to keep this letter if we split, so that you'll always know why we split. I'd also like you to keep this letter if we stay together, as a reminder. Right now, I am so angry. If I didn't know that the courts would take Sydney and Justin away from me, if I did this, I would fuck every guy, including some that you know, just to let you know how it feels. I wish someone could explain all of this to me. I see our marriage as a huge mistake. You don't. I knew what went on in our relationship before we got married. I knew after 6 years that all the things I thought were going on were. All the things I gave into. And I'm sorry for thinking that. I'm sorry for not believing you. I'm sorry for not trusting you. I made up with you all the time and even took the blame many times for your cheating. I know this took place because we fought about it a lot and even discussed it before we got married with my family and a minister. Okay, before the marriage, I lived with it and dealt with it, mainly because you finally said that we weren't married at the time. I assumed that your recurring nasty attitude and mean streak were to cover up your cheating and a general disrespect for women and a lack of manners. I remember a long time ago, a girlfriend of yours wrote you a letter. She said, well, you aren't married yet, so let's get together. Even she had the same idea of marriage as me. She believed that when you marry, you wouldn't be going out anymore. Adultery is a very important thing to many people. I wanted to be a wonderful wife. I believed you, that it would finally be you and me against the world. That people would be envious and in awe of us because we stuck through it and finally became one, a real couple. I let my guard down. I thought it was finally going to be you and me. You wanted a baby, so you said, and I wanted a baby. Then with each pound you were terrible. You gave me dirty looks of disgust, said mean things to me at times about my appearance, walked out on me and lied to me. I remember one day my mom said, he actually thinks that you could have a baby and not get fat. I gained 10 to 15 pounds more than I should have with Sydney, and that's by the book. Most women gain twice that.
I take it that your sister gained weight while she was pregnant.
Yeah, she did.
And after each of those pregnancies, did she keep the weight on for a while?
Yeah.
She was actually pregnant, but you ever hear the defendant comment about her weight?
Yes, I did.
What did the defendant say about your sister's weight while she was pregnant?
He used to call her a fat pig. He used to comment like this all the time.
Can he make hand gestures?
Yes,
You actually hear him call your sister fat pig while she was pregnant?
yes.
After she had each of the children, would he make similar comments about her weight?
Yeah, he hated fat women.
It's not like it was that much, but you made me feel so ugly. I've battled 10 pounds up and down since I was 15. It was more extra weight than was normal for me. I believed my mom. You thought if a baby weighed 7 pounds, then a woman should weigh 7 pounds. I like to finally tell you that that's not the way it is. And had you read those books I got you on pregnancy, you would have known that. Nicole's oldest sister, Denise Brown, takes the stand. She describes her sister as smart, beautiful, independent, and strong. During her testimony, she tells a story about when Nicole and OJ first started dating. They were hanging out at OJ's home when she made a comment to him that he takes her sister for granted. She says that he became incredibly irate by this, told Denise that he did everything for Nicole, and began slamming his hands down. Pictures fell off the walls. He threw Nicole's belongings down the steps, slammed Nicole up against the wall, and threw all of them out of the home. When questioned about Sydney's dance recital, she says that OJ was sitting behind her at first before moving his chair up against a wall and sitting alone. She goes on to say that when she did look over at OJ that night, she saw him just staring her sister down. OJ himself has said that he felt that Nicole's outfit was inappropriate and tight that night, and this infuriated him. There were 41 items of evidence collected from OJ's Rockingham mansion, OJ's Bronco, and Nicole's home on Bundy. At Nicole's home, officers collected a bloody glove believed to belong to the perpetrator. On the glove, they found one hair from Nicole, fibers consistent with Ron's shirt, fibers consistent with Ron's jeans, and a dog hair from the Akita. A blue knit cap was found at Nicole's home. On the hat, they found several hairs from the Akita, 12 hairs matching OJ's, several fibers consistent with Ron's shirt, one fiber consistent with the lining of both gloves, and one fiber consistent with the Bronco's carpet. Among the blood evidence found at the Bundy scene, they would also find blood drops near the victim that belonged to OJ, and 4 blood drops on the walkway that matched Simpson. DNA analysis of the blood determined that the blood that did not belong to Nicole or Ron belonged to OJ Simpson. Blood evidence found in and on the Bronco included blood matching Simpson on the interior driver's door, blood matching Simpson, Nicole, and Ron on the center console, blood matching Simpson and Nicole on the steering wheel, blood matching Simpson on the driver's side wall, blood matching Nicole on the carpet. A glove matching the glove found at Bundy was found at the OJ mansion. The defense has strongly argued that the second glove was placed there by police. More specifically, Mark Furman, who is in no uncertain terms not a fan of African Americans. I'm sorry. The glove at Rockingham would contain several hairs from Nicole, several hairs from Ron, several fibers consistent with Ron's shirt, dog hair from Nicole's Akita, one fiber from the Bronco's carpet. There's a pair of socks that were found on the floor of OJ's bedroom. The socks contained the blood of Nicole and Ron. The defense argued that these socks were planted there as well. There was also blood droplets found on Simpson's driveway and foyer. Found on Ron Goldman's shirt were one hair consistent with Simpson, 25 hairs from Nicole, several hairs from the Akita, 4 torn fibers from Nicole's dress, several fibers from the knit cap, one fiber consistent with the lining of both gloves. Alan Park, the limo driver for the night of June 12, 1994, says that he did not see the Bronco parked outside of OJ's home when he arrived to take him to the airport. The issue with this is that he first said he wasn't sure if the Bronco was at the home or not when he arrived. He also stated that he saw a man matching Simpson's description enter the Rockingham mansion when he claimed that he was asleep. The problem with this was that he first said a man, and then during his testimony, he said that he was unsure if it was a man or a woman that entered the home.
May 10th, 1995, DNA testimony begins. Doctors would actually testify that there is a 1 in 170 million% chance that a single blood droplet found at the scene did not belong to OJ Simpson. June 15th, 1995, OJ tries on the infamous, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," bloody gloves for the jury. Robert Shapiro would later come out to say that he knew in advance that those gloves wouldn't fit. He tells Fox News that he tried on the glove first and that it was a little bit wide in the palm and a little bit long in the fingers, going on to say that OJ has enormous hands and that he knew those gloves would not fit him. He tells OJ to walk as closely to the jury as he can, hold up his hand like he's holding the Olympic torch, and to pull and tug on that glove because it will not fit. And he was right. But if you're like me and that did not sway your opinion about his guilt, there are a few theories as to what may have gone wrong. The glove was covered in blood, and the blood seeped into the fibers of the leather and shrunk it. Theory 2, it spent months in an evidence box, warping the way that they were made. Theory 3, he was wearing latex gloves underneath the bloody gloves, which may have caused friction. 4, the outside elements may have impacted the integrity of the design. 5, OJ was purposely positioning his hands in a way that would make the gloves not fit. And lastly, he had stopped taking his arthritis medication in hopes that it would make his hands swell. Chris Darden, the prosecutor that suggested Simpson try on the gloves, would later tell Inside Edition that the trial of the century was not worth it. He says that the trial still haunts him and that it greatly affected his legal career in a negative way, which I can't even imagine, but I could imagine that it really did, because a lot of people believe that he lost that case, even though I don't think so. I think that that jury had their minds made up long before he tried on that glove, personally. That's just my opinion. He says that he lost multiple friends as a result of losing the case, but probably worst of all, he would end up losing his dream job with the DA's office following the trial, and he would find out that he had been let go from the position when he read it in the newspaper. Like, that sucks. That sucks.
Found out I was no longer a member of the DA's office when I read it in the newspaper.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you. Someone called me and said, "Darden, you got fired from the DA's office." I'm like, "What? No, I didn't. No way. You know, after all the blood I've shed, hell no."
But it was true.
Detective Mark Furman takes the stand, and it has been highly alleged that he planted evidence at OJ's Rockingham mansion, more specifically the bloody glove. When he first arrived at the Bundy scene, he was walking around by himself while armed officers were inside the house. So it's quite suspicious that he would not be walking around with another officer, considering the fact that there was such a brutal killer on the loose. Shortly after the investigation began, Mark Furman is taken off of the case. So it is the theory of the defense that Furman wanted to be on this case more than anything because it was such a high-profile case and it would obviously boost his career. Probably would have done it in a positive way if this didn't happen, but they further claim that him finding the glove at Rockingham would actually end up making him a key witness, and that's why he planted it at the home, because it would basically be the only way that he would still be relevant in this case, because he's the person that found the other glove. It's not far-fetched. It's not far-fetched, but I still think that OJ did it. I will never not think that he did it. September 5th, 1995, the jury hears excerpts of the Mark Furman tapes.
Try to find a bruise on him there. First thing, anything out of the mouth for the first 5 or 6 sentences is a fucking lie. Leave that old station, man. It's got the smell of dick for years.
September 6th, 1995, Furman takes the stand again, except this time he decides to evoke his Fifth Amendment right and refuse to answer any more questions. Because at this point, what the hell are you going to say? Like, what do you have left to say? I don't blame him. February 7th, 1995, Johnny Cochran tells the judge that he believes it is incredibly inappropriate that Marcia Clark wear a pin that is similar to a pin that Denise Brown wore the day before.
Miss Clark is wearing some jewelry today, which looks very, very similar to the jewelry worn by, or the pin worn by Miss Denise Brown. She had 2 of them the other day, and I think that it's inappropriate for counsel to be wearing the same thing as the witnesses, as though this is like some kind of a, I might phrase it, but I think it's inappropriate. And I called it to Your Honor's attention earlier, and I'd just like to make the record. I think it's inappropriate, given the fact that certainly Ms. Brown can wear whatever she wants to wear, but when we see counsel coming into the courtroom wearing it, I think it's inappropriate.
What are you proposing?
She take it off and not wear it anymore. Made it clear we were not to wear any badges or buttons or anything of any support. How would it be if we came into court and I wore a big number 32 and go walking around here with this jury? I wouldn't do that.
He tells the judge that he believes Marcia shouldn't be allowed to wear it anymore, going on to say that he doesn't walk around with a big number 32 on him. Marcia Clark would say that it is a show of support from the family, but that it is incredibly small and tasteful.
Describe the item in question.
It's about maybe 3/4 of an inch big. It's a very small little angel.
Too small for any detail to be seen by the jury, certainly. This is a very small and very tasteful show of support in compared to all of the jewelry and the pins Mr. Cochran wears every day, which he does and is visible to the jury. But not only that, but of all the constant barrage of publicity that he engages in, sympathetic to his client, sympathetic to his witnesses, denouncing the people's case and the people's witnesses and the victims in his own in insidious ways, I think it's very inappropriate for him, of all people, to come forward to this court and complain something as minor as showing support for the family of the victims in a...
Therefore saying that the jury wouldn't even pick up on what she was doing.
Honor said we were not to wear buttons, badges, or whatever. And the next day she shows up with it. Now she can say all she wants to say. Our jury is sequestered. Any statements that we're asked when we leave this courthouse, our jurors never see. But she's parading, walking back and forth, showing clothes 200 times today with that madam, that angel.
Mr. Cochran, those kinds of arguments about he did this and she did that and pointing fingers back and forth on all the other transgressions, real or imaginary, don't really persuade me one way or the other. The issue is the lapel pin that Ms. Clark has, whether or not it is identifiable with one side or the other. Ms. Clark concedes that it is. She says that it's an expression of support. So isn't it really a legal issue as to this pin and not about all these other things?
This is just one of the examples of the arguments that will go on continuously between the defense and the prosecution throughout the entire trial. September 26, 1995, closing arguments begin for the prosecution. September 27th, 1995, closing arguments begin for the defense. October 2nd, 1995, after less than 4 hours of deliberation, the jury reaches a verdict. October 3rd, 1995.
Find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder.
OJ Simpson is found not guilty for the deaths of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown. After the acquittal, Robert Kardashian will come out to say that before OJ tried to unalive himself that day in the Bronco, he had planned to do it in the bedroom of Kim Kardashian. He says that he walked into the room and OJ was sitting there on the bed with his GUN in his hand. Had pictures of the kids and Nicole with him. And he told Kardashian that he's going to unalive himself right there in Kim Kardashian's bedroom.
I said, you can't.
Robert says that he told OJ, you can't. This is my daughter's bedroom. I can't have my little girl in this bedroom, and every time I come in here, I'm going to see your body.
So this is my daughter's bedroom. I can't have my little girl in this bedroom, and every time I come in here, I'm going to see your body.
Really? You were going to do that in a little kid's... I mean, forget that it's Kim Kardashian. It doesn't matter, because at the time, she was just a little girl. You're going to do that in a little kid's bedroom? That's cold. Lastly, after the verdict is read, OJ leans over and whispers something to lawyer Robert Shapiro. So we now know what it is that he said. He said, you told me this would be the result from the beginning, and you were right. When asked how he felt seeing OJ laughing after the verdict, he said that he thought it was inappropriate that two people were dead and there should still be some respect. And when asked if he would have represented OJ in the robbery case in Las Vegas, he says that OJ did not call him, first of all, but even if OJ did call him, that he would not have represented him because he still owes him money from the first trial. So I guess that not paying debts is a reoccurring theme for OJ Simpson. All right, guys, if you are still here, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you and I appreciate you so, so, so much. I know this was a long one. I probably left out quite a bit, but it was, oh my God, this is just so long. But let me know what you thought. I really want to know what you guys thought. So please leave me a comment. Please like and subscribe if you haven't yet. You feel so inclined to. And until next time, stay safe out there.